Otsuka Holdings PTSD drug setback, lessons in psychiatric drug development. Imagine pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a high-stakes gamble, only to see it crumble under regulatory scrutiny. That's precisely what happened to Otsuka Holdings in July 2025 when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's, FDA, Psychopharmacologic Drugs Advisory Committee, PDAC, rejected its application for Rexulti, Brexpiprazole, in combination with sertraline for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The 10-to-1 vote against approval underscored the FDA's skepticism over the drug's efficacy, citing discordant results in clinical trials. For Otsuka, a company whose psychiatric drug portfolio has long been a cornerstone of its revenue, this outcome raises critical questions about the long-term risks of relying on high-stakes, late-stage psychiatric drug development. The PTSD application, a high-stakes gamble. Otsuka's PTSD application was touted as a potential game-changer, a first new pharmacological treatment for the condition in over 2 decades. The data package included 3 trials, 2 Phase 3 studies and 1 Phase 2 trial. While one Phase 3 trial, Study 071, showed statistically significant improvements in PTSD symptoms, another, Study 072, failed to meet its primary endpoint. The FDA flagged these inconsistencies, with reviewers calling Study 072 clearly and convincingly a negative study. But here's where it gets controversial: the FDA's demand for rigorous, consistent evidence of efficacy, especially for conditions with limited treatment options, means that Otsuka's $200 million plus investment in Rexulti's PTSD application may yield no return, at least in the short term. The company now faces a choice: resubmit the application with additional data, a costly and time-consuming option, or pivot to other therapeutic areas. Financial resilience amid uncertainty. Despite the setback, Otsuka's Q1 2025 financials reveal a company in a strong position. Revenue rose 12.2% year-over-year to 582.8 billion yen, driven by its pharmaceutical segment, which saw a 16.2% increase. Key products like Abilify Maintena and Rexulti remain cash cows, contributing significantly to the segment's growth. In 2022, Abilify alone generated 400 billion yen in sales, highlighting the company's entrenched presence in the psychiatric market. And this is the part most people miss: Otsuka's diversified pipeline offers a buffer. The company's R&D strategy spans psychiatry, cardiovascular, and oncology, with 12 compounds in Phase 3 trials as of March 2025. These include ulotaront, for schizophrenia, sibeprenlimab, for IgA nephropathy, and delamanid, for tuberculosis. Such breadth reduces reliance on any single product and mitigates the risk of a catastrophic revenue drop. Strategic risks in a high-pressure sector. The psychiatric drug space is fraught with challenges. Unlike oncology, where biomarkers and survival metrics provide clear endpoints, psychiatric trials rely on subjective measures like the clinician-administered PTSD scale, CAPS-5. This subjectivity increases the likelihood of mixed results, as seen in Otsuka's PTSD trials. Moreover, antipsychotics like Brexpiprazole carry long-term risks, e.g., weight gain, movement disorders, which the FDA and advisory committee scrutinized closely. Otsuka's heavy investment in neuroscience also exposes it to regulatory and market volatility. For example, the recent rejection of MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD in 2024 illustrates the FDA's cautious stance toward novel mental health treatments. If Otsuka's PTSD application is ultimately denied, the company could face reputational damage and investor skepticism, particularly if its pipeline lacks near-term approvals. The path forward: diversification as a lifeline. Otsuka's strategic response to the PTSD setback will be crucial. The company has already signaled its intent to work with the FDA, but resubmitting the application without addressing the trial inconsistencies could be a costly gamble. A smarter approach might involve redirecting R&D resources toward its other late-stage candidates, such as sibeprenlimab for IgA nephropathy, which is already filed for approval in the US, or ulotaront for schizophrenia. The company's collaboration model also provides a safety net. Partnerships with Sumitomo Pharma, Ionis Pharmaceuticals, and Esperion Therapeutics have expanded its pipeline without straining internal resources. For instance, the licensing deal for ION 363, ulefnersen, for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, leverages Ionis antisense technology, reducing Otsuka's R&D burden. Investment implications. For investors, Otsuka's situation presents a mix of risk and opportunity. On the one hand, the company's reliance on psychiatric drugs, a sector prone to regulatory and clinical setbacks, poses a long-term threat. On the other, its diversified pipeline and strong cash flow position it to weather short-term storms. The key question is whether Otsuka can balance its focus on high-risk, high-reward projects, like PTSD, with more predictable growth areas, e.g., IgA nephropathy, tuberculosis. If the company continues to overcommit to psychiatric drugs, its stock could become a volatile play. However, if it leverages its partnerships and shifts toward its more robust cardiovascular and oncology candidates, it may prove a resilient long-term holding. Conclusion. Otsuka's stalled PTSD application is a cautionary tale for pharmaceutical companies chasing blockbuster psychiatric drugs. While the company's financials and pipeline suggest it can withstand this setback, the broader lesson is clear: over-reliance on high-risk, late-stage projects in a subjective, regulatory-heavy sector is a dangerous strategy. For Otsuka, the path forward lies in balancing innovation with prudence, a challenge that will define its success in the years ahead. Investors would be wise to monitor how the company navigates this crossroads, as the outcome could shape its trajectory for decades. What do you think? Should Otsuka double down on psychiatric drugs or pivot to more stable areas? Share your thoughts in the comments below. FDA's negative vote on Brexpiprazole for PTSD, implications and future directions. A stunning setback has rocked the psychiatric community. The FDA Advisory Committee has overwhelmingly voted against recommending Brexpiprazole, Rexulti, combined with sertraline for treating post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. For anyone hoping for a breakthrough in PTSD care, this decision is both frustrating and deeply consequential. But here's where the debate heats up. Was this the right call, or did the committee miss an opportunity to help those in desperate need? To unpack what happened and what it means for the future, Psychiatric Times spoke with Dr. Gus Alva, medical director at ATP Clinical Research and a respected voice in psychiatric medicine. Dr. Alva didn't mince words. A 10-1 vote is about as negative as it gets, he said, expressing clear disappointment. This isn't the first time a promising new therapy has been rejected. Just recently, a much-anticipated MDMA-based treatment for PTSD was also denied in a similar fashion. Why does this keep happening? The committee's decision was based on a complex and, frankly, controversial set of data. The evidence package included two major Phase 3 clinical trials. One, Study 71, showed positive results, while the other, Study 72, did not. Additional data from a Phase 2 trial was also considered, but some experts felt that if the Phase 2 study had been conducted differently, it might have shown negative results as well. This uncertainty led the advisory group to conclude that the overall evidence just wasn't strong or convincing enough to support approval. And this is the part most people miss. PTSD is a stubbornly difficult condition to treat, affecting about 4% of the population, and there have been almost no new medications approved for it in more than 25 years. We're still relying on the same SSRIs we've had for over 3 decades, Dr. Alva pointed out. The need for new, effective treatments is urgent, yet the path to approval remains steep and full of obstacles. So, what happens next? The FDA hasn't made its final ruling yet, but Dr. Alva predicts that the agency will likely ask the drug sponsors, Otsuka and Lundbeck, to conduct yet another clinical trial. This would mean more delays, more expenses, and no guarantee of success. The sponsors may not even be able to afford another large-scale study, he cautioned, highlighting a real risk that this potential therapy could be shelved indefinitely. Despite these challenges, Dr. Alva remains hopeful. At the recent Southern Psychiatry Conference, he emphasized the ongoing innovation in psychiatric medicine. The field is constantly evolving, he said. We're seeing a wave of new medications with different mechanisms of action being developed for mood and anxiety disorders. I'm confident that with continued research and determination, we'll eventually discover better options for our patients. The story isn't over yet. As the FDA deliberates, the psychiatric community, and patients wait anxiously for the next chapter. Will the agency demand more data, or could there be a surprise decision? And here's a question for you. Do you agree with the committee's cautious approach, or do you think it's time to take more risks for the sake of those suffering from PTSD? Share your thoughts below. This is a conversation the field needs to have.